So here we are playing 16-bit holiday games from 1996. These are the games that came out during the holiday season of 96. Around 96, it was very, very unusual for us to come across a 16-bit game because you had 64, Saturn, PlayStation flooding the market. But there was still a few 16-bit games being released, and this is one of them right here. Sonic 3D Blast for the Sega Genesis or Sega Mega Drive. Now, as you can see here on the Sega Genesis version of the game, you have a little fancy introduction. The Sega Saturn version also released around the same time for the holiday season in 96, so if you had a Saturn, you could either buy the Saturn version or you can still play your Sega Genesis. And as you can see here, the bridge does not bend back and forth, but still, the game is very, very much playable. And it's probably one of the most beautiful looking games on the Sega Genesis. It plays pretty much identical to the Saturn version. The audio is different. Some people actually prefer the Genesis soundtrack over the Saturn, which I'm the other way around. I do like the Saturn version better. Nonetheless, you're guaranteed to get a good game either way, because it's literally the same thing as the Saturn version, except in a 16-bit form. And it really displays like the best of what 16-bit can do. It's actually really nice. Now, back in 96, if you were a younger kid, and you weren't quite ready for the Saturn or the PlayStation or the 64, there might be a possibility that your parents might have just bought you a 16-bit console just for the hell of it. That'll keep you busy for a couple years until you're the correct age to take care of a PlayStation or a Sega Saturn or a 64 console. So, you might have actually received a Sega Genesis for Christmas of 96. And if that's the case, you might have actually received Toy Story. And as you can see here, this game came out quite late in the life cycle of the Sega Genesis, and actually looks quite impressive. It has a strange 3D effect to it. This is another game that came out very, very late in the 16-bit life cycle of 16-bit consoles, and it looks like it definitely took full advantage of the 16-bit hardware. Once again, it has a weird 3D illusion. And as you can see here, once you walk past furniture, the furniture almost looks 3D, which is actually pretty cool. So as you can tell, this game was more aimed towards kids, younger kids. Let's check it out. I'm actually quite impressed by the 3D effects that it has. It actually looks pretty good for Genesis. It's actually not bad at all. It's not my type of game, but once again, it was designed for kids. So, well, back in 96, I was actually 10 years old, so maybe back then I would actually play this. I actually held on to my NES and played my NES up until 1998. So I had my NES for a long time. So I actually skipped the 16-bit consoles, and when I was 12, I actually got a PlayStation. And I used to actually play 16-bit consoles at my friend's house, but for me personally, I was playing 8-bit consoles for a very, very long time. And the question is this really a good game or a bad game? Because even though the graphics, they do have really nice digitized graphics, the game could be really crappy. And quite often, that's usually what happens with these kids' games right here. I mean, they usually end up being aimed towards kids, but they're usually shitty games. So comment down below and let me know what you think of this game. Is it a bad game, or is it actually a decent game? Because so far, to me, it actually looks like it might be somewhat decent, but to be quite honest, I never played it before. I might have to check it out. Hey, perhaps you're looking to get a little bit more life out of your Sega Genesis, and you're not quite ready to upgrade to your PlayStation or 64 console or the Sega Saturn quite yet. So maybe for Christmas, you might receive this game right here. Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. Now, this is the game that I would definitely like to have back in 96 for my Sega Genesis. Look at that. Look at that title screen. And then we have the whole story of how this insane game came about. So you have the whole storyline right there. And it's the title screen right here. You have Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. Mortal Kombat mode. Or we can do 4-player, 2-on-2 combat, which is almost like a tag team wrestling match, kinda, you know. Or you can have yourself an 8-player tournament. And you have your usual characters that you would see in this game right here. And this game came out holiday season of '96 for the Genesis, so it came out quite late in the life cycle of the Genesis, but as you can see here, it's actually quite playable. You can use the 6-button controller for the Genesis and try to figure it out a little bit, but it actually plays quite well. What the hell is that? I just got my ass uppercutted into upstairs, which it happens to be this monstrosity of a place. What the hell? Take that, you stupid bitch. Ugh, what? Hey! Get off of me. What? Oh, I just got my ass kicked. Or perhaps you had a Super Nintendo instead of Sega Genesis. There was still a few games coming out for the Super Nintendo in '96. Let's check this out. Worms for the Super Nintendo came out during the holiday season of '96. I believe it released though in Europe. I'm not sure about that. Alright, so right here you can actually set up the configuration of the game, I guess, and I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. Let's see if we can bypass this. Alright, so if you ever played Worms before, this is pretty much Worms, but on the Super Nintendo. This was definitely a very, very popular PC game back in the day. So this game is definitely for older PCs. You'll definitely enjoy playing this game. This game's awesome. I have never ever played this on a 16-bit console before, so this is pretty much new to me. I never even knew this actually existed on Super Nintendo. So it came out very, very late in the life cycle of the Super Nintendo. I don't think it came out on Genesis. But it was available during the holiday season, and it's quite playable, as you can see there. Also available during the holiday season '96 is this game right here, Donkey Kong Country 3. What an awesome game. You received this for Christmas in '96. How lucky are you? This is definitely one of the last really, really, really good 16-bit games. And as you can see right here, we have VHS tapes. Look at that. It's actually pretty cool. And this game always had some really, really cool digitized graphics. So if you were a fan of the first 2 Donkey Kong Country games, you weren't going to be disappointed with this one. This one's actually just as good. See here, you can actually drive your own boat, which is actually pretty cool. And much like the first Donkey Kong games, it pretty much plays the same exact way. Yeah, this is definitely one of the best series on this Super Nintendo. So if you felt like holding onto your Super Nintendo just a little bit longer before you got 64, this was definitely a great game to have. I mean, look at that, it's an elephant, look at that. Now there were still quite a few 16-bit games that were being released during the holiday season of '96, but this will be the final one that we'll showcase. It's actually Kirby Superstar for the Super Nintendo. Look at that. Almost looks like it's on 64. Look at that. It's actually pretty crazy looking. That's the title screen right there. And it looks like we make it a little bit of a demonstration of what the game looks like. Or maybe a storyline right here. Look at this. This is definitely showcasing the power of the Super Nintendo. I mean, look how awesome that is. Got all these little characters running around. That fat bastard just ate something. Alright, so this is actually the start of the game right here. So I guess you have 3 different saves. You have to pick one of them right here to start the game. And right here it's giving me a tutorial on how to play this game, which unfortunately I don't think you can skip. Or maybe you can. Oh, you could. You just hit the start button. And here we have the actual game right here, and it's pretty much just like any other Kirby game, but it's one of the most finest Kirby games to ever exist, in my opinion. Probably the best. You can eat your enemies and then pretty much gain their powers, which is actually pretty cool. And what the hell did I just do? Now I can actually throw all kinds of bombs. Look at that fat. Is that a cat or a bear? What is that thing? I don't know, but you ate it. I don't know how he ate that. That thing was bigger than his own body mass. Doesn't even make sense. Yeah, if you've never actually played this game before, this is one game that you definitely have to play. It's one of the best Super Nintendo games in my opinion. And it's definitely a really good game that came out late, very, very late in the Super Nintendo's lifespan.
Quick play!